So welcome to this episode, everyone. As you saw there, I just arrived at one of our local trail systems, Moon Lake Recreation Area, and I'm getting ready to take off on one of my favorite things to do, which is wintertime fat biking in the snow. On this ride, the conditions were perfect. There was a beautiful tread groomed in for myself and other riders on the previous days, and I couldn't wait to tackle it today. Wintertime cycling has so many benefits with the open sight lines, the lack of vegetation, the decrease in insects, and the lower chance of seeing danger noodles and other pests. It definitely opens up some other areas to adventure and allows me to navigate some places that maybe I wouldn't be able to in prime summer vegetation. Beyond those reasons, when the conditions are perfect, it's hard to beat a cruise on a fat bike on perfectly firm groomed trails. The only downfall to the cold weather season is lack of daylight and the temperatures themselves. But hey, we can control that. We have lights, we have gear, right? There's no such thing as bad weather, only bad gear, as they say. Speaking of that gear, we're going to talk about some of the items that I wear to make these winter rides a little bit more enjoyable at the end of the episode, and I'll also share some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way through these cold weather seasons. So make sure to stick around to the end to check those out. Let's jump into this quick edit from a beautiful day at Moon Lake. So it usually doesn't take too long. After a couple of turns, you get the feel for things, and you can tell right away today was going to be great. The tracks from the previous days had really set up, and things were running fast. Oh man, and how about those wintertime sunrise and sunsets? And with how quick things were riding, I was going to make it down to the lake in no time. And if the ice conditions are safe enough to allow it, it's hard to deny a quick lake lap when things are frozen over. And after that beautiful lake lap, I met up with Leah and finished the route around the lake. So riding in the winter can be such a great time. However, due to how quickly the conditions can change and how fast things can go pear-shaped, I could see why some people may be hesitant to dive into it. So I'm going to take a moment here to talk about some of the gear that I use in the wintertime and some of the little tricks that I've picked up over the seasons to make things a little bit more easier and enjoyable as well. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the kit that I'm going to be wearing while riding in the winter. Having the right clothing can definitely make or break your wintertime experience, and contrary to most beliefs, you don't have to break the bank to get a comfortable collection of clothes. I mentioned it in my video on bike packing, but watching for sales is a key. There's so many places that are trying to sell their winter gear over the summertime that you'll often get stuff at 50% off or even more sometimes. Used is also a good route to go if you keep your eye open on different marketplaces for that. Let's jump into my kit though for this winter season. The first layer of gear you put on, your base layer, is often the most important. My base layer system is made up of two pieces, my top and my bottoms. My top is a merino wool, smart wool base layer. These can be very expensive, but finding them on sale, or one of my new favorite stores, Sierra Trading Post, I found a bunch while shopping over the summer for under $50. The good thing about wool, it keeps you warm even if it gets wet, and it also doesn't stink if you like to wear your gear, a couple rides in a row. My bottoms are made by Volair, and they're an insulated bib tight. I love these and have been wearing them for years. If it's not really cold, like in the 20s or below, and not windy, this is often all I'll wear on my bottoms. It's just these bibs, and it does me good. They've been lasting, the zippers have been holding up, so even though the price tag on them is a little expensive, if you use them only during the winter season, they're gonna last you quite a few of those. On top of that base layer, I have just a moisture wicking shirt. This one's made by Smartwool as well, but any moisture wicking type of shirt would do, so you can find those really cheap in some discount stores also. This one, however, is cycling specific, so it has one little key feature. It has a back flap that's a little longer to cover your rear a little bit in case you're riding through some mud or some sloppy winter conditions. On top of the Volair bib tights, I put a pair of Club Ride pants, and these are nice as well because they give you an added protection from the wind, keeping it nice and toasty. And these are also cycling specific, so they have some extra patches sewn on them where you would expect to see them on cycling pants, around your knees, around the ankles by the chainstay and such, and of course on your bottom. As far as my legs go, that's it. Even down into the teens, that's usually all I wear on them, and it keeps me comfortable. Up top, if it's super windy or cold, I usually put one more shell layer on, and that as well doesn't really need to be any fancy cycling specific thing. You just want something to block the wind, basically. So I found two different jackets that I wear, one that's lighter and one that's heavier, and those I found at discount stores too. I think one was at TJ Maxx and one was at Sierra. For the one was $5, and I think the other one might have been $7. So here's those two jackets I was talking about. They're both made by New Balance. This one is basically just like a shell layer. Like I said, nothing special to it. And then this other guy has a little bit of a fleece liner to it. So this one I would wear if it was getting down in the single digits or really cold, but it's also still slick, water resistant, and blocks the wind up top, really keeps you warm. A vest is another nice option. If you find one of those, you just keep the core a little warmer so you're comfortable. On your head, they do make winter helmets, which I'm sure are nice, but they can get pricey, so I just look for any type of beanie that would fit comfortably under my helmet. This one is an Intraknit one made by Smartwool as well, so it's merino wool and it's nice and thin, so when I put my helmet on, I don't really notice it's even there, but it still comes down, covers my ears, and gives me that extra protection when I want those covered up. If it's really cold, down into the single digits, the balaclava will come out, and this one really keeps you nice and toasty inside. This particular one that I have is another Smartwool one, so made out of wool, so it doesn't get stinky if you're wearing it over and over and forget to wash it, like I usually do. But you could find a lot cheaper versions of them, just anything that's moisture wicking. With these, just be careful, because with my experience anyway, I find that you can overheat very quickly with these on, especially if you get a thicker one. So it's good, sometimes I'll take still my regular hat with me, my regular beanie, and I can switch them out if I need to in the middle of a ride. From there, you're down to your extremities, and this is where I would suggest if you're gonna or you can spend a little bit of money, definitely do it here. The hands and your feet are probably the downfall to most people for wintertime cycling. For both of these, I went to 45 North for my gear. And this as well, if you look at the price tag when everything is full price, it might floor you for some of their gear, but watch throughout the summer, they themselves right on their own site had a 50 to 60% off sale over the summer this year. So I picked up a couple extra pairs of gloves even just to have them around. But same as I said with the Volair bibs, everything I have for 45 North seems to be lasting and lasting, knock on wood. Right, the gloves are great season to season, and same thing with the boots. So for my gloves, I have these Sturmfist 4s. Right, so they have thumb, pointer, and middle finger are loose, and then your other two are stuck together. Right, so that kind of gives you nice, good braking and shifting control still, and they're pretty comfortable. I do have a pair of the Sturmfist 5, which are regular 5-finger gloves. They're good down to around freezing or so. When it gets below that, I go to these bad boys, and that's all I need. I usually don't run pogies or anything like that. These guys keep me good. Pogies are another good option though. As you saw in the video, Leah has those on their bike, and they're great for blocking the wind, and it also allows you to, most of the time, just wear your regular summertime gloves if you have those pogies on. These are the 45 North boots. Yeah, they're awesome. BOA setup, that's the only thing I had to replace so far, and I've had these for quite a few seasons already, was the one BOA cable broke, so I just bought a replacement, restrung it, and it was good to go. All right, they're sturdy, they're waterproof, they got a nice little lining on the inside, right, that they do come out, but I usually keep them in there. And if you get these, if you don't know, one of the other wintertime hacks for your gear, for your boots and your gloves, get a boot dryer. That definitely helps you out with the stinkies as well. As soon as you get back, toss these on the boot dryer along with the gloves, and it keeps them fresh and ready to go for the next ride. Before I put the boots on, my socks, I just have a pair of Volair Woolly Bullies. And I have a couple of different brands, but wool socks are usually what I go. I have 3 different socks with 3 different sizes, kind of, you know, almost summer weight. These are middle ones. These are the ones I wear most often in the winter. Then I have a heavier pair. If it gets down to single digits, I'll put them on as well. Another one of the harder things to deal with in winter cycling is hydration. Right? Oftentimes it's cold, so if you have a water bottle on, it ends up usually freezing. Even if the water bottle itself doesn't freeze, a lot of times the spout will, so you can't get the drink anyway, so you end up having to take the cap off, and it's just a frustrating experience. One thing I found to help with that is to use some sort of pre-hydration. Right? And I'm not usually one for nutrients and supplements and all that stuff, but in the wintertime, it definitely helps me out. Honey Stinger makes a pre-hydration blend, so if I'm only going out for an hour or so, I'll mix up a bottle of that, slam it on the way out to the ride, and then I won't even bother taking a hydration with me. That usually lasts me, it keeps me cramp free through that ride. If I know I'm going to be out for longer and I definitely need some form of hydration along the way, I have a couple different things I'll do. I do have one of those polar insulated bottles, which that'll allow it to last a little longer before it freezes, but it still has the same issue where the cap and the spout usually ends up still freezing, so you have to unscrew that and just drink out of it like a cup. A hydration pack sometimes gets the key, especially if you put it underneath my jacket. So the shell that I mentioned, I'll put my hydro pack on and then put the shell over that. That helps it out a lot. Just make sure you keep the hose in there as well so that doesn't freeze up. And then another trick is if you get the running bottles or the squeegee type of squishable bottles, you can get one of those, and if you have a jersey pocket, you can keep that in your jersey pocket right next to your body. That'll usually keep it from freezing. And then also the good thing about those is as you use it, it shrinks right down to nothing, so you don't even notice you're carrying it. Outside of special gear on the bike itself, I don't really have too much. The only thing I definitely recommend is tire pressure. Keep it as low as you can go. If there's enough snow on the trail to cover up the rocks and roots, well, basically ride your tires almost flat, just keeping enough air in them so you're not dinging your rim if you do hit a bump. Certain occasions, if things get icy or if the trails get really packed down and then there's a freeze thaw area, it might get icy. So if you have a pair of studded tires, they work great. That's another thing where if you look at the price of them at regular price, it's going to floor you. But you know, watch out over the summer. Look for a set of used tires. Even if you find a set of used tires that has the pre-drilled spots in the lugs to put the studs, that's the route I ended up going. So I bought the studs and the little stud tool, and you place them in yourself. It's painstaking and it takes a while, but it's a cheaper way to do it. You could probably also find a used set of regular stud tires, or watch for clearance or see them at a bike swap meet or a marketplace or something like that as well. Might be a good route to go. If you're traveling to a location to ride, getting your bike on your car with your rack system could be a headache as well. So I found a couple runarounds for that. If you're unfamiliar by what I'm talking about, wake up in the morning, get your bike out, all your gear packed up, go out to the car, and you go to move your rack, and you realize it's all frozen up. So one thing I do at the house inside the garage, I have an old hair dryer that I keep there with an extension cord on it. I'll run that out with the hair dryer, run it up and down the rack a couple times, and it'll usually loosen up the parts so I could work it. If it happens to refreeze at the riding location while I'm riding, I have a little handheld guide that I found on Amazon for around $30. If you have more money, you can find battery-powered heat guns as well, but they're a little bit more pricey, but would probably get the job done quicker than this little guy does. But the little guy still worked. It came in handy a few times already this season. So that's it for this one though. So I hope you found some of those tips useful. Maybe they gave you the confidence to try winter riding yourself if you haven't already. It's beautiful out there. You won't regret it. Over the years, I've definitely become more and more of a winter rider. Even, dare I say, preferring it over summertime. Maybe I won't go that far, but I've been enjoying it a lot. If you have any questions or want specific links to some of the gear I'm using, feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll answer you back, or give me a message on Instagram or Strava as well. I can contact you there. If you have any recommendations yourself or have other tips to make winter riding more enjoyable, leave those down there also. That's going to be it for this one though. So till next time, coffee, cycling, Zig Booth. We'll see you out there.